Alrighty, so today's lesson is focused around introductions and how to write introductions and what they look like in an essay. But first, what we want to do is recap the previous video or the previous lesson. So to do that, what I want you to do is in your book or device, just jot down a recap from the previous video to make sure that you've watched it. So what is an essay? What does an essay consist of? What does an essay question or topic look like? And what are keywords? So give this a pause, jot down your answers to those, and then we'll go through them when you're done. Okay, so what is an essay? An essay is a written report which responds to a question or a topic. You form an argument and you're spending the essay providing the argument and your justification or your explanation for it. So you give evidence, you state your points, you explain them, and that's how it goes. The essay consists of an introduction, three what we call main body paragraphs, and a conclusion. So they're called main body paragraphs because they make up the body of the text. So if you think about an introduction being the head and the conclusion being the feet, and the rest of the essay is pretty much the majority of the form, and that's a main body. If you're thinking differently to that, there was the comparison to a burger in the previous video. So an introduction is the bread, and then the main body paragraphs are the filling, and then the conclusion is the base bun. What does an essay question or topic look like? So there are two parts to that. There are two things that you're going to be asked to do. You're going to be asked to describe and you're going to be asked to explain. And we do that when we write main body paragraphs. We do description and explanation in the process. So when you describe, and then you might do something like describe a character, and then you might explain why they are likable or why they are important or how they show you a theme or an idea. And keywords. So this is something that some people find tricky, so well done if you're acing this. So keywords are the focus points of the topic. So these are what you reference throughout your response to ensure you're addressing the question. So if the question's about a character and why they're likable, those are your keywords. If the question is about a setting and how it shows an idea, those are your keywords. So they're just the words that if you had to say to somebody, today I wrote an essay, it was about blank, those would be your keywords, the thing that retained, yeah? Because you're not going to go, oh, I wrote an essay where I described, but that could be any essay topic. So you're trying to think about the specific things that make that topic, and those are your keywords. So well done if you could remember that. Not a big deal if you haven't, it's early days still. So introductions. And the purpose of an introduction is to introduce your text, your topic, and your main points. So we talked about how introductions are like the top bun on a burger, or they're the head. They're just something that's there structurally. Okay, if you had a burger without a top bun, things would get messy. So it keeps it contained, keeps it tidy. Otherwise, you'd launch straight into your essays, and things wouldn't make sense. No one would know your topic, so no one would even know what the text is that you're talking about. So they're to give it a little bit of structure. They are mainly factual, so you don't really have your personal opinion and things like that in there. And they follow a pretty easy formula. You can mix them up once you get confident, but you don't have to. They can be pretty dull, pretty formulaic. From your introduction, it should be really clear for your marker what your chosen topic is because of your use of those keywords. So it should be easy to guess what the topic is. And when we look at a model one in a moment, hopefully you'll be able to see that. So what do you include? This is what you need to make sure you're jotting down. So these are the 6 things that you need to make sure you have in your introduction. So you need to reference your text title. So your text is what you are studying. That might be your poem that you're looking at, your short story, your novel, or your film. So films are a visual text. So they are a text. The author or creator, if you were doing a film, it would be the director. So it's an author or a poet or a creator. You need to reference their names. You need to know it. And then when you reference them again in the essay, you just refer to them by their last name. Never their first name, always their last name. Then you need to reference the text type. This tricks some people up. So the text type is if it is a novel, a film, a television episode, a short story, a poem. You should know what text type it is, and if you don't, you can ask your teacher. You should have one sentence of plot. Plot is your story summary or your poem summary. This is if you go home and you said to your parents, today I read a book, it was about blank. One sentence. Doesn't have to go step by step, one sentence. And once you've got that, those first 4 steps you can have memorized really easily. So you'll be able to produce that first sentence really easily, and you've got it memorized. You don't have to think about it, and that can stay the same for any essay, which is really handy. Next, you need to have keywords from the topic. So often these will be in bold in the exam or in the essay questions to help you, but if they're not, you've just got to practice those skills from the previous video. Then you need to have the main points for your essay. So this is where you write what you're talking about. So whatever those main points are. So make sure you have taken the time to pause this now and copy down the parts of an introduction because you're going to need to know them for the next step. Okay, so next step, parts of an introduction. Here we go. So what you're going to do is label or color code the different parts of the introduction on the exemplar below. So what you might want to do is pause and copy if you haven't got a copy of this in front of you. And I'll be reading it through to you as well. So make sure you pause this, copied it down, and then we'll do the labeling, or you can do the labeling. So this is about a novel called Hatchet. Doesn't really matter if you don't know it, because all you need to know are these. So you need to be able to find these. You're an explorer looking for those parts of the introduction with this one. Okay, so I'll read it, but copy it down, and then you're going to try labeling those yourself. In the novel Hatchet by Gary Paulson, an important setting is the boreal forest in Canada. The novel is about a young teenage boy called Brian who has to crash land a plane in the Canadian wilderness and learn to survive. This setting is important because it helps us to learn about the theme of survival. This important setting is shown when Brian lands the plane, Brian making a fire, and Brian surviving a tornado. Okay, so if you've got those down, what I want you to do now is go back through and you're going to label, or if you can't label, if you're on a computer and it's easier, do it in different colors. So find 6 different colors and label those different things. So the text title, text author, text type, plot summary, keywords, main point. And then as a bonus round, see if you can figure out what the question would be. Describe what. Explain what, based on the keywords that you can find. All right, so I'm assuming you've done that and you've come back to this, and now we're going to go through it. So if you've struggled with that, don't worry, the answers are here. And if you've got that aced, awesome, you can check the answers. So the text type is a novel. The text title is Hatchet, and the text creator or author is Gary Paulson. The key words are important setting, and then if we come down to here, I think it would be something like why it's important to learn about. Or it might be something like important setting and how it shows a theme. So my best bet would be the question based on this is describe at least one important setting in the text, explain why that setting was important to learn about. Okay. Either way, if you have the question in front of you or not, from those key words, important setting, and they've talked about it again, setting is important because it helps us learn. You know that the argument for the essay, they're going to spend the whole essay arguing that the boreal forest is an important setting. And then they're going to say why it's an important setting, because it shows the theme of survival. So that is the key words. No matter whether you know the text, no matter whether you know the question, you can figure out from this introduction what they're going to be talking about in the essay. And that's all an introduction has to do. So if you've got that, you're onto it. The plot summary is that sentence there where it talks about what the novel is about. So this is handy if you haven't read the novel, because you now know enough basic detail to understand the text. And then what you're hoping is that the main body paragraphs have a lot of detail as well. The main points are just these three ones here: when they land the plane, when they make a fire, and when they survive a tornado. So those are the main points, which means those are the scenes or the bits of evidence or the events that they're going to use to justify or bring on their argument. So it's really clear. It's got all of those for you. So that's me labeling it there. But if you look here, all I've done is just put the text information in one color because they couldn't have that many colors. They were ugly and they were hard to see. So they're all in green. It's the text information, yellow is the keywords, pink is the plot, and blue is the main points for you there. So you can see they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. Okay, so it doesn't take a long time. You can mix them up, and when we do, you'll be writing one in a moment, you can see that you can structure it slightly differently. So you can start with the text information, the plot sentence, and then move into the keywords. As long as you've got those components, you can basically order them in any way that you like. The introduction first sentence there in the novel Hatchet by Gary Paulson is a pretty easy one to sort of base your introductions around. So you could go, in the novel blank by blank, in the short story blank by blank, and you'll find yourself getting all you need to know. Alrighty. Now what I want you to do is to try and write an introduction yourself. So we're going to use the question from a previous video and work with that. So describe at least one character in the text and explain why they were likable and or dislikable. This means that you could talk about more than one character, and this also means that you could talk about why they were likable but also dislikable, or just likable or just dislikable. And that's from the and or there. And the reason I know I can talk about more than one character is it says at least there. It's important to read that carefully though, because sometimes you will get a question that says describe a character or describe an important setting, which means one. So it's really important that you read the question carefully. So you're going to try to write an introduction. If you feel confident, you can go ahead and write it now. If you want some steps to help you get to that point, then we're going to work through those together. So the first thing that you need to do is start with a little brainstorm. So can you identify all the characters in your text? Start with that. Put them down, get them on paper. Then what you want to do is narrow down to 1 or 2 characters who are the most significant. The easiest way to figure that out is what kind of impact do they have? If they're in lots of things but they don't really do much or say much, they're probably not going to be as helpful. If you can think of events that really show them and they've got quite a big impact on the story or the big impact on you as a reader, or they really help to show you something or help you learn something, they're the ones you want to go with. The best essays will narrow down to 1 character. Even if you can do multiple, 1 works best because you're going to do it in lots of detail and that's going to help your grades. But if you're struggling, you can pick 2 characters. Now, you've got all that. You've narrowed down to 1 or maybe 2 characters. You've got to figure out, are they likable or dislikable or kind of both? So this is you figuring out your argument. So you might look at a character and say they are 1 character, purely likable. Awesome. Now, why are they likable? Okay, you've got to figure that out. And that's going to come down to a character trait. So think about the character. Just imagine we'll stick with 1 for now. Are they likable, dislikable, both? All right, you might think they're likable and dislikable. Okay, what makes them likable? Write that down. What makes them dislikable? Write that down. So they might be likable because they're brave. They might be dislikable because they're mean or racist or something like that. So have a think about that and write them down. So write down the character, write what makes them likable, and write what makes them dislikable. And now what you need to do when you've got that is try and think of just some events that show that. You don't need to know the evidence, you don't need to know it really well, but think about the text. All right, you've decided that character is likable because they're brave. What are 3 events that could show that bravery? You've decided that they're dislikable because they're racist. What are 3 events that help to show that? Or if you've got both, What are maybe 2 events that show that they're likable and 1 event that shows they're dislikable? Or 2 events that show they're dislikable and 1 that shows that they're likable? You ever think about that? You just need to state the events and know what they are. That's the starting point. Okay, if you've got that, that's awesome. If you haven't and it's a bit tricky, that's okay. It's a starting point. Okay, if you don't know the events, that's all right. We can still write most of the essay without that, or most of the introduction rather, without that. And it's just a starting point. So if you've got your character, you know that they're likable, or you know they're dislikable, or you know why that is, that's what you need for the next step if you're really stuck. Bonus points for having the events. So then you need to get your information together. So jot this down first. Okay, then you've got all the bits you need to piece together an introduction. And I've got some sentence starters to help you with that. So piece it together. So write down wherever you're working in your book, in the device, the title of your text, the author of your text, the text type, a sentence about what it's about, your keywords, so that's character, likable, character, dislikable, or if you're doing likable and dislikable, then you can have both of those words in. And then your main point. So those are the 3 events that help to show your character. If you don't have them at the moment, that's okay. As long as you've got the rest of the stuff, you'll be all right. If you are in my class and you are doing C assignment, we're going to piece that together. Okay, so what you're going to do is write all this down. If you feel confident, go for it. If you are stuck, stick around and I will show you the example for C assignment. So the text title is C assignment. The text author is David Hill. The text type is a novel. The summary is it's about 2 boys who are friends, Nathan and Simon, but Simon has muscular dystrophy and they go through many challenges together. That's all you need to know, really. The topic keywords are character and likable or dislikable, depending on your argument. And the main points, so I've come up with these. This might help you if you're a bit stuck for that. So I've decided that Simon is a likable character, and he is likable when he is playing football, beginning of the text, when he's looking after the child or the baby, and then when he's talking about telephones. I think that makes him a likable character, and those are my events. So what you can do now is pause, and if you feel confident, try and piece that information together into an introduction. Look at the hatchet one, there's a couple of little minutes back, and use that. If you feel confident, try give it a go. If you're feeling less confident, stick around and I have a template to work with. Alrighty, so this is the template for those that need it. In the novel blank by blank, we followed the story of ... Simon's character is likable because blank. We see Simon's likable character when ... So you're going to go in the novel and then you write the title. By, then you write the author. We follow the story of, then you write the plot summary. So that first sentence you can write, and if you write a good one now, you can memorize that, and that can be the start of any C assignment essay. Next is my keywords. Simon's character is likable because, and I'm just going to state a reason. All right, so that's when you think, and I'm not going to tell you that necessarily, why could Simon's character be likable? What are some good personality traits that Simon's character has? And then we see Simon's likable character when blank, and that's when you're going to put in those main points. If you feel like you know this or you've got a different argument, you just put your information in. Okay, the stuff I've given you is just to help you along if you're not super confident. If you have your own argument, you might talk about Nathan and Simon. You might say Simon's dislikable and likable. You write that information in. This is just to help people that are still feeling like they need a little bit of extra help. Okay, pause the video, give it a go, try and write those in. Assuming you've done that, you've now written an introduction. If you want to see my one, just stick around and we'll go through that. So in yellow is all the stuff that I filled in. In the novel See You, Simon by David Hill, we follow the story of a friendship between two teenage boys, Nathan and Simon. Simon has muscular dystrophy and they go through a lot of challenges together. Simon's character is likeable because he is brave and has a good sense of humour no matter what difficulties he faces. We see Simon's likeable character when he is playing football, he looks after the child, and when he talks about telethons. That should have a full stop at the end, I forgot. So that's an introduction. It's as simple as that. So if you haven't got one or you've really struggled to do it, you can pause this and copy that one down. And that is basically the conclusion of what we've gone through. So to summarize an introduction, they exist to give structure. So you don't launch straight into the argument. Okay, it'd be messy, it'd be weird, it'd be hard. You wouldn't know what they're talking about. You wouldn't even know the text they're talking about. That's why we've got them there. They should provide information on the text and state the topic and provide your arguments or points. They don't need evidence or explanation. They're about 3 to 5 sentences. So I think the first one we looked at for Hatchet was 4, and that next one for C.S. Simon was 3. In an exam, or any situation really, they should take you about 10 minutes or less to write. That's not where you're going to get your grades necessarily. You need to have them, but your best grades are going to come from the detail in your main body paragraphs. So you want to have them, you want to have a first sentence memorized, so it's easy peasy, and then it's just a matter of keywords, main points. All right, hopefully that's kind of clear. If it's not, read through them again, or have a go at practice writing a couple yourself, write them in different ways, order them in a different way, and see what you can produce. Adios.